Hey guys, Tyler here, and thanks for checking out this video. Now that Shadowlands is about a month away, I thought it would be fun to look back on my experiences in BFA and share them with you. So, let's get started.
Mr. Eggplant presents.
First and foremost, like I say, I am an eternal optimist, especially when it comes to World of Warcraft expansions. So if you guys are looking for a video that's just going to do nothing but bash BFA, this is probably not the one for you, because honestly, I really enjoyed it. So overall, I'd have to give BFA a B minus for a couple of reasons. I know a lot of people would probably give it a C at best, but for one, there's just yet another expansion of me killing bosses and having fun with my friends, because really, that's ultimately what this game is all about, is just having fun and enjoying the ride. But I did like some of the added content from this expansion, like islands, new dungeons for Mythic Plus, since I'm really being on that train this expansion. Mechagon and like horrific visions, for example, were so much fun for me. I know a lot of the community didn't like most of that things, in particular the islands and horrific visions, but streaming and completing them each and every week was something that I really look forward to. And of course, maybe if I didn't record for YouTube, I might think a little bit differently, but it was a blast trying to better myself each and every week, particularly with those horrific visions. Because after all, I'm pretty sure I ran several hundred of them in 8.3, because I was doing 10 or 20 a week, not joking, at one point. And even thousands of islands, because, of course, mounts. I do love my mounts after all. So another big reason that I really liked the expansion was actually for Battlegrounds, because Marksman Hunter is actually amazing on the fields of battle in BGs, particularly this iteration of Marksman Hunter, because we had an insane range where nobody knew it was hitting them until they were already dead. Because after all, if we weren't being focused in a BG, we can certainly push a team fight in our favor, kill priority targets, and like 2 or 3 shot people if you get really lucky with crits. And I only made it to Challenger and Arena this expansion. It's actually the highest I've been in like 3 or 4 expansions since I think MOP. But so most of my time I spent PvPing was just doing random BGs, and Marksman Hunter was just so much fun in BGs because there's just something about killing somebody from a mile and a half away that absolutely makes me love this game. But as for the story for BFA, I thought it was pretty interesting. I'm usually one that doesn't fight too much with the story that they do give us, but it was thin in some places. But since they've been building for Shadowlands now for quite a few expansions, both the Legion and BFA expansion, I'm excited to see where that's going to put us in the next expansion for sure. And I will admit, I didn't think I'd like the continued Horde versus Alliance struggle as much as I did. Particularly with the landscape changing because of like war fronts in Arathi and Darkshore, and then losing whole main cities. I never would have thought they would have done that in like Darnassus and the Undercity, and not to mention all the changing of how important characters like Sylvanas act. And I really thought the Horde and Alliance storyline kind of ended pretty well with the Battle of Dazarlor raid. And in fact, the Battle for Dazarlor was probably one of my top 5 raids I've ever done. Current content at least, of all time. I really enjoyed that one, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I thought most of the raids and dungeons were solid, but I have my favorites, of course, which we'll talk about, and my most hated, so I'm sure you guys can guess which one that'll be. But there were several loose ends that they need to be weaving together for the pre-patch and in Shadowlands. I'm super hyped for that, but I'm glad that if nothing else, we got to fight N'Zoth as the final boss for this expansion. The fight probably wasn't as good as people would hope. I really like to watch the Mythic fight, though. That one was pretty nice. But since I missed both Cthulhu and Yogg-Saron current content, it was really nice to finally fight an old god. But I mean, if nothing else, the holes for the story that people will complain about in BFA has really left me hungry to see what Shadowlands has to offer. So as for Marksman Hunter and Bfa, which is really what you guys are here for, over the last couple expansions, I think Blizzard has made so many changes to Marksman Hunter, both the class, our ability design, what our goal as a class is, and Bfa was definitely no exception. I know we went through several different builds just this expansion, whether that be the meme build at the beginning or more towards the In the Rhythm Unerring vision that we ended up with. But over the last couple of years, I think that Marksman has actually got better as we've progressed through the expansion. Because they finally found some bright spots to build on for Shadowlands. I know some of those things people don't like rapid fire, for example, but I'm really excited for that to be the building block of Shadowlands. And right now, it's going to be one of the better specs. At least they're projecting to be a better spec come launch. So I know that Beast Mastery Hunter was definitely the spec of choice for most people in BFA, if they even stayed on their Hunter, that is. But overall, I thought that Marksman was a rewarding experience to play all expansion long. For one, I'm going to kind of know how the playstyle is going to be for Shadowlands, so I'll be a little bit ahead of the game for that. But for corruptions that they added, another round of Azerite traits, having 6 in total, and essences, definitely made the spec feel like it should have the entire expansion. And it's really a shame that a lot of people would have seen what it was like at the beginning of the expansion and was like, oh, this is complete garbage, where it was fun to play and it was fairly smooth towards the end. But like Moof says on his write-ups over on Wowhead, and I use the same quote, that it's just a band-aid for the bigger problems. I'm really hoping that they continue to make changes, positive changes, build on what works, and get rid of what doesn't. So we'll just have to wait and see. But the chances are good that if someone was still playing Marksman in 8.3, they definitely have to min-max to work around some of the issues that Marksman still has, like minimum targets for cleaving, and then the maximum target cap, which now everybody will have, or most classes will have, come Shadowlands. So some issues were fixed, and some more still remain, of course, at least in the beta for Shadowlands, which I still didn't get into, which I'm kind of sad about. But we're getting some of our old favorites back as we're looking ahead to Shadowlands, like Trank Shot and Kill Shot, and several abilities like Binding Shot are going to be baseline. But there's still going to be some growing pains, like I said, for people that are coming back to Marksman Hunter. Because Marksman still really needs some of the effects that you got from Azerite to really get up off the ground at all for BFA. Like I said earlier, the In the Rhythms, the Unerring Vision, that sort of thing. And a few of those key ones, like the two I just mentioned, have not even made their way to Shadowlands yet, which is still going to allow us to fall short in some areas, like 2-target fighting. But you better believe that I'm going to work my butt off here to make sure that I'm going to excel on my Marksman Hunter, whether it's the spec of choice or not. So since we're kind of taking a look back at BFA, I thought it would be kind of fun to compare my favorite raid encounters with you guys for both raid and dungeons. And so be sure and leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought was your favorite. And I'd love to see all the different feedback that I'll get from that. So here we're going to start off with my top 5 raid fights with, of course, 2 honorable mentions. So at number 5, I have Ra Din the Despoiled from the most recent raid of Nyalotha. So I thought it was really cool, the Rathian questline for the cloak. It was nice bringing Ra Din back into the Pandaria portion of that, since we haven't seen him since then. And the fight itself I really enjoyed, particularly the Mythic fight, even though I did not kill it, unfortunately. I did really like that one in comparison to the others. But it was a nice throwback to his Mist encounter. And after all, he has some pretty cool voice lines throughout his fight as well, like, "I need more power!" And at number 4, I have Jaina from the Battle of Dazarlor. So of all 5 raids that we had this expansion, other than maybe N'Zoth, just because of who he was, I really thought that she was the only one that really felt like an in-raid boss. For example, like, I didn't have any idea who Unat was. I had no idea who Gahun was before all this, and then half of his fight he just stays in the wall. So it was really cool that we fought Jaina, and I really liked the idea of fighting on the boat and then her just freezing the entire part of the sea and then just fighting her on the frozen sea. But of course, on Mythic, she dropped one of my favorite mounts ever to be added in this game, which was the Glacial Tidestorm, so she always gets brownie points for more mounts. So at number 3, I have Zukul, Herald of N'Zoth. I really like this fight, the next 2 for that matter. Was just a hectic fight. I really liked the heroic version. I never did the mythic version, didn't even watch the video for that. But you have the several different floors or phases where only certain people could see certain abilities and see certain mobs, and I really liked that because you had to really work as a team, and it was a nice accomplishment when you finally feel like you could down him each and every week. And at number 2, like I said earlier, it's also a hectic fight, and number 2 is Mecha Torque. Actually, flavor-wise, probably my favorite fight this expansion. But the fight was absolutely bananas, and one person could wipe your whole thing with, I think it was gravity bombs, I think is what they were called. Either way, they would just nuke your entire group if they weren't put outside out of a line of sight properly. Of course, he drops a cool mount, so more points for that. And he had all sorts of mechanics that you needed to watch out for, particularly when you got into Heroic, and I can't even imagine what Mythic like. And no two pulls are ever the same on that fight, and that's something that I really like. So before we get to number 1, which you can already see on the screen, I have 2 honorable mentions, and those 2 honorable mentions go to Talik and the Restless Cabal. So Talik, just because I absolutely loved his model. It was so cool that he was the first boss that we fought this expansion. And after all, he was also the first Mythic boss that my guild, Drexet, has ever killed, because we're normally just a guild that goes for AOTC and doesn't bother with Mythic at all. So it was really something special to actually go in there and kill a Mythic boss. And then of course Restless Cabal, because I got to tank a boss as a Marksman Hunter. You don't hear that very often. It brought me back to my original ICC days, tanking one of the Blood Princes on my lock. And that was actually the reason I actually went to that raid and got onto my first raid team. So if nothing else, both of those are going to be for nostalgia's sake. And the number 1 fight for me is Opulence from Battle of Dazarlor. So for one, I absolutely love his model. I'm really hoping they make him a battle pet in the future, because they tend to do that in later expansions. Especially because there's the little coin monster that's in the Stormwind version of the Horrific Vision. So I definitely know they can put him down, make him a little bit smaller, because I mean, who doesn't love a money golem, right? And overall, I thought the fight was pretty cool. I really liked the idea of splitting your group into 2 different sets of rooms, and then you had to make sure and get to the final point near the same time to make it work. I thought it was fresh, and of course something different, which I always enjoy. So real quick, I guess, for raiding the actual raids themselves, I would put Eternal Palace at 5, Crucible of Storms at 4, Nyalotha at 3, Uldir at 2, and Battle of Dazarlor at 1. So as for my dungeon favorites, you guys will probably be able to guess them already thanks to my mini Mythic Plus videos that are here on the channel, but let's get started with those. So coming in at number 5, I have Waycrest Manor. Because aesthetically, it's probably the best looking dungeon because it's a literal horror movie come to life, which I absolutely adore horror movies, especially with October being just around the corner. I didn't like some of the packs in the instance itself, like the little dogs running around, and some weeks it was absolutely brutal for my group in Mythic Plus, usually the Sanguine weeks, so that's one reason why this one wouldn't be as high on my list. And at number 4, I have Mechagon, particularly Mechagon Workshop. Just think about it. Just going from the little flying machine that takes you to the final boss area, it's just a view of the area is absolutely amazing. And if you watch any of my videos, you probably hear me comment about it almost every time. And overall, I thought the Mechagon voice acting was really top-notch, and I love the fact that it has a hard mode, because you don't see a ton of hard modes anymore. The only thing I could think of was Return to Karazhan for the mount, which this one also does give a mount. But other than that, you haven't seen hard mode in a long time. At number 3, I have Temple of Sethralis. So this was actually one that, if you watch my Mythic Plus videos, we have done an obscene number of times in Season 4. But prior to Season 4, I absolutely hated it. But it definitely grew on me as we got more comfortable with the dungeon itself. I still hate that first boss because you can nuke yourself with an aim shot that still hasn't hit the boss. That's something you have to work on. But I liked bringing the 2 orbs to the snakehead to open that up. To get to the final boss, and of course the Electro Elemental third boss, Galvix, I believe his name is. He has a really cool model, and you guys have probably heard I really enjoy creative new models that they add to the game. And at number 2, I have Kingsrest. So this is another one that I used to hate, but it has a soft spot for me because this is the first plus 20 that I ever timed in the entire expansion and game for that matter. So it definitely nostalgic, has this going up a little bit higher than it probably would be normally. But I thought the Season 4 affix, the Awakened affix, definitely helped move this dungeon up my list as well. It has fun encounters, but it was definitely very challenging the higher you got with keys, and it got challenging very quickly. You know, third boss anyone, or maybe the actual boss of the entire place wasn't Dazar, it was actually Zul whenever he was fortified weeks. But after all, challenging is right up my alley. And at number 1, I don't have any honorable mentions for this, but at number 1, you guys guessed it, Freehold. I tell you this all the time in all my videos. I mean, it has everything: booze, gold, pirates. I love me some pirates, so we did this so many times, and it drops a mount that I still don't have, the pirate parrot mount, the Squawks mount. But all that edited together, I just absolutely adore this dungeon, and I'm really going to miss it. And I guess since I ranked the raids, I'll go ahead and rank the seasonal affixes for Mythic Plus and BFA. So I'd go with Beguiling at 4. Absolutely hated that one. Infested at 3. I guess it could have been 4. I didn't do nearly as many plus 10s season 1. I was still trying to get my feet wet in Mythic Plus and then find a group that I could actually push with. Reaping at 2, since it kind of gets 2 by default. Although I did really like it that one zombie kind of buffed you to finish the key out. And then Awakened is going to be my number 1 because it's Awakened. It allows you to skip trash. I love it. So I just wanted to thank you guys for sticking around and watching this. Hopefully you watched it to the very end here. But this has been such a treat to continue to make videos for you guys, push myself to be a better player, and just thank you guys for another great expansion. This is my second one fully now on YouTube, and I'm really looking forward to continuing that journey both in streams, guides, videos on YouTube, into Shadowlands. So thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Be sure and follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/MrEggplant. Going to be streaming all of my Nintendo games and all my Shadowlands streams whenever that goes live on the 26th of October. But until my next live stream video, I'll see you later. Stay safe, guys.